Well, it's a pleasure for me to be invited to talk to you about the usability of digital libraries. I'm not going to say too much about Science 2.0, just a little bit. But as usability is a topic concerned with everything in the web, I think it doesn't matter really whether Science 2 or 5.0. It is our concern to make tools available and accessible to everybody and not just a few experts in information. My talk will connect nicely to that of David Nicholas earlier on. Is he still here? Are you still here? No. What a pity. I'm not going to disagree with him. He said, actually I made a note of this, nobody talked about libraries at all, just in nostalgic terms. Now, I'm not going to disagree with him, but I would like to perhaps see what libraries could do in order to connect to this movement. But first of all, before I start with my real talk, I would like to show you just a glimpse of what we actually do. We evaluate digital libraries. We use a usability lab. We use known criteria, about 90 or 100 criteria that evaluate library usability. And we do cognitive walkthroughs, focus group interviews, and all sorts of methods. Just to give you a little glimpse in what I mean later on when I talk about usability of digital libraries, I just show you a tiny part of a video.
I see a picture of a film setting. My impression is ich bin überfordert. I don't know what these pictures are for.
So I see a picture with some cameras, looks like a movie scene, like a scene from like a backstage scene.
It's a lot of pictures there to be seen and a lot of words, and so I don't know what to do with it.
My first impression is maybe not that good because of the color, like it's gray. Mm-hmm. Nothing good comes to my mind for the first look when I look at the first picture. I don't even know what it can be about, to tell you the truth.
Quite a lot to read. I don't like that.
It looks like sports websites. I
work at our university and for my students. And it was a video from a usability test of the European Film Gateway. Now, in the first part of my talk, I will report some core findings of our usability studies and what can be learned from them. I will then leave the subject of usability and move on to the other side of the coin, namely usefulness of library services in the age of Web 2.0. These are the 12 evaluated digital libraries of the last years. You might know some of them. Some of them don't exist any longer for good reasons. And I would like to, instead of listing all our findings, I would like to show you just a few typical examples that represent plenty of usability problems that reoccurred again and again. In order to put you in the right mood, I'm going to use the metaphor of cultural clash, maybe, of failed cultural and communication. On the one hand, we have the library culture, here on the left-hand side, and then we have the culture of libraries' customers, researchers, students. And I just give you a little bit of time to read, these different values. So all research on user behavior, and there's plenty, you heard some by Professor Nicholas earlier on, points out to the fact that students and researchers are pressed for time, use Google and Google Scholar at best, before any other search tool, expect everything else to behave like Google, and they give preference to any document that is free on the web. So what is not free on the web just does not exist to many of these people. So they can access them from their office or from their home without any barrier. The most significant findings are, no matter which age or which status in academia, speed and convenience are vital to all library users. Now, the most obvious barrier in intercultural communication is that of different languages. And research has been telling us for 30 years that there is a barrier between the language of libraries and that of their customers. And it is the duty of librarians as a service provider to use the language of their customers, but they still don't. Here's some specimen of terms that library customers are confronted with. Do you know all of them? Librarians do. So librarians still expected to be the other way around. We are, as customers, expected to learn these terms. But instead of using these terms, one could use terms that are understandable, like instead of, say, federated search, why not say search in all catalogs or in more databases? The next barrier is thinking in different categories. It is the more of a barrier thinking in different categories than thinking in different languages. And this is just an example of the categories that are important to libraries and librarians. They deal with them every day. But a digital library that compels its customers to choose between these categories before they can submit a search won't exist for a long time. Our test persons did not want to know about different data silos for different types of information. They just want one single search and one single search result page. Just to give you a practical example of what I mean, look at, can you see it? Probably not in the back. I'm sorry about this. It's a screenshot. Hardly any of these filters. So here's a search result page with about 2,000 search results. And this digital library offers you a filter in order to narrow down your search results. And this filter is full of possibilities of filtering that none of our test persons would understand. I don't understand them. Instead, they would have liked to see a filter that allows you to specialize a special discipline. So all these 2,000 documents in a special discipline or a special target group, like introductory literature as opposed to specialized literature. Now, another typical intercultural experience is that of culture shock, or in the case of library service, that of disappointment when told that everything is fine and easy. So there are promised one-stop shopping, connecting knowledge, easy access, and so on. Naturally, libraries would like to convince their users of the added value of quality-controlled documents as opposed to the arbitrariness of search engines. But it is not helpful to raise expectations and then to stay far behind the convenience of search and access that users are used to. These flourish promises are nothing but marketing lingo. And imagine the frustration of a customer when he or she fails to understand, let alone handle, the service after being told it is easy. Now, this is the main frustration and has remained so over the past 20 years, being shown metadata only and not a full text. Even if the search interface seems easy, like the one shown here, library customers still end up on complicated and unfamiliar platforms of publishers, mostly, when it comes to getting hold of that document, or they have to actually go to the library and get that book. So, some libraries seem to expect their customers to be interested in the library and its wonderful achievements. But customers turn to the service provider with their own concerns, but they want to be sorted out promptly and unhampered by barriers. They do not want to be entertained or admire the library for their groundbreaking ideas. Here's one example, and I wonder if most of you know it. It's Karlsruhe Virtuelle Bibliothek, as most of you know, allows you to do a simultaneous search in many German and worldwide digital libraries. All of our test persons ignored the link called Karlsruhe Virtuelle Bibliothek, and when asked why, one test person said, "Was habe ich mit Karlsruhe zu tun? What's Karlsruhe to me?" So this is what I call the Ricola syndrome. Who invented it? We did. But why should a customer follow this link? He or she needs a label that specifies how he or she can benefit from choosing this link. Also, libraries tend to give their catalog cute little names like Heidi, Beluga, Fink, Koala. One of our recent test persons last year guessed that Beluga must be a scuba diving club's website. Why not call it what it is? Der Hamburger Bibliothekskatalog. That's what it is. Here's another example. Library customers work in a culture of multitasking, lack of time, and for some in a culture of competition. Now, this is the European Library, and they seem to talk to customers who have all the time of the world to explore icons of contributing collections that they probably have never heard of before. They are obviously supposed to divert from the initial intention of following the information need and instead spend their time exploring institutions. Yes. Perhaps you can't read it in the back. It's what is surrounded in red, the red circle, says SLUB Semantics. Now, this library seems to be proud of some search term feature. The customer does not know how he or she can benefit from it, but is certainly told who invented it. Now I come to the second part of my talk, lessons learned, and our first lesson was honest proposals for funding. proposals for funding must be able to give an honest statement about the need for a planned service. Not all proposals do this. Some European projects are merely politically intended, and a lot of money is invested into digital libraries that are prone to failure. Often these digital libraries claim to have many target groups. This is supposed to mean if our service has many target groups, it will reach a lot of people. So it should be worth funding. Instead, investors should become suspicious. A digital library cannot possibly be usable to so many different target groups with such different qualifications and backgrounds. Some proposals for funding are not honest about the amount of work that must be put into the metadata before the digital library actually delivers what it promises. But I won't go into this in this context. Second lesson, less is more. Very easy lesson, but difficult to follow. So in one of our focus group interviews, one participant summarized the focus group discussion with this citation: clarity and plainness are the ultimate objectives. Customers won't read text or be entertained by cool features. If they have to read explanations before using a service, they will leave it. With the emergence of Web 2.0, digital libraries are enriched with a lot of features like tagging and other user-generated content, various mashups, and all the facets that metadata will provide. After a while, when asked what could make our customers actually use these features, research found out that they are confused and ignore them if possible. In case of need, they already tag, recommend, and discuss elsewhere, but not in a library service. Libraries are well advised to refrain from showing off with everything they too are capable of. Lesson learned 3. Useful and honest labels instead of correct professional terms or marketing lingo. Here's one example from the European Library, which has this tagline underneath their logo saying connecting knowledge. Now, connecting knowledge doesn't mean anything. It's just clever and I think dubious. Our students rephrased the tagline and said just what it is: your gateway to libraries all over Europe. This is informative and simply what it is. This looks a bit complicated. Lesson learned 4. Usability engineering is not a fig leaf. This is roughly, on the slide you see here, how design for usability should be handled. Usability engineering starts before any bit of programming code is written. It begins with a target group and task analysis, and it progresses in cycles of several prototypes until a usable version can be approved. The first question must be, do customers need this planned tool? And if yes, who? If this is the question of usefulness, and I will come back to it. What we found instead was an analysis of metadata, an analysis of librarians' tasks, at best unrealistic use cases for invented target groups, and a fig leaf of a usability evaluation of the completed alpha version or a digital library that was already online and in use. Most of the work was done and all money spent. A usability report based on summative testing. Summative testing means testing when, in the end of the project, in the end of the whole programming process, is not worth the paper it is written on. We stopped working for such projects and instead focus on contractors who are willing to act on our findings. We have a promising cooperation with ZBW, as far as I know, the only library in Germany with its own usability expert and lab, namely Stefanie Linek here. And we happily cooperate with the Beluga project of Hamburg academic libraries, who did some real usability engineering in several cycles of prototyping. So we won't do any more of this kind of fig leaf usability evaluation. Lesson 5, usefulness. Know what is needed. Usability is not everything. A service in the internet can be usable, but useless. Therefore, libraries must be trained in qualitative research methods that allow them to walk in their customers' shoes and find out what is needed and what is not. Doreen Siegfried, head of public relations of the ZBW here, and Sebastian Nix published an excellent book on market research methods for librarians, and I think it is a must for everybody involved in new library services. Last but not least, come back to the topic of this conference, social media and libraries 2.0. A bit closer to Science 2.0, but not still from the perspective of library services. Looking at evidence in international literature and also at evidence from research here in Hamburg, there's a discrepancy between what libraries want their customers to want and what these customers actually do. First, what libraries want their customers to want. We find library blogs that teach users about Web 2.0 and social media and how they could benefit from using these tools. We find documents stating that researchers know many Web 2.0 services, but they must begin to understand them and use them for their work. Libraries would like to have a new meaning to their users by interacting with them about their needs and new services through a library blog, RSS feeds, chat, Twitter, or Facebook presence, by showing them how to share their ideas and documents with fellow researchers via Delicious, Mendeley, wikis, and the like, by supporting their need to participate, collaborate, communicate, and publish through new library services. And users would be involved in all this. Libraries are, in fact, on a quest for a new raison d'être. However, all evidence in user research tells us a different story. None of our test persons ever knew why digital libraries display these Web 2.0 icons. It seems, and research at ZBW confirms this, that these icons are displayed for image reasons only, to show that the library too knows how to be part of the trend. Users acknowledge the fact that the modern library should use these Web 2.0 applications. At the same time, they ignore them because they feel distracted from the purpose that they came for with their real information need. Social media are known by researchers, but mainly used in a private context. Participation in social media is considered time-consuming and putting one's reputation at risk. I repeat some of the findings that David Nicholas mentioned earlier on. Publishing, of course, as he said, in peer-reviewed journals is still the ideal way to an academic career. If used in a professional context, social media tend to be read but not contributed to, as we heard by Herr Köhler, was it? So, a comprehensive study commissioned by the British Library states that for the researcher of the future, namely the Google generation, books are still the main library brand, despite massive investment in digital resources of which students are largely unfamiliar. Unless, of course, they find it via Google. According to another study in 2013, 80% of academic participants said that the most important role of the library is that of a buyer of books, journals, and databases. Concerning the search for information, well-known information scientists and practitioners come to the conclusion that discovery, namely discovery of documents, happens elsewhere, which means not in library catalogues and in digital libraries. So, how much time do I have left? Thank you. So what are the services that libraries could provide even in the age of Science 2.0? Here are 5 services that are in harmony of what we know about user behavior. Number 1, more than ever before, libraries are crowded with users who are looking for well-equipped and cozy learning environments with technical support. Libraries are called upon to provide such learning commons and adapt them to the working culture of their customers. So they're really needed as buildings. Number 2, take the content to the user, not the user to the content, is the motto of one of Professor Tochtermann's projects and a service that researchers and also students would appreciate, I think. A service like that would meet the need for awareness of new research in the subject area and for convenience and efficiency. I can think of several ways of doing this. While discovery happens as is known elsewhere, a highly personalized push service would be more than that. It would be an alert service matching a researcher's profile, a user-centered marketing of digital resources. Of course, going hand in hand with said push service, there must be a delivery service as convenient as that of Amazon. Articles would be delivered to the desktop of the researcher, no matter whether electronic or in print. This means that libraries would have to invest a lot of thought into logistics. And libraries must connect to the global discovery services that researchers prefer to use and integrate the delivery into these platforms as a fulfillment service. Fulfillment service is a citation which I take from Lorcan Dempsey, Vice President of OCLC. Number 3, interviews show that many users have problems thinking of search terms that will lead to the kind of documents they are looking for. Therefore, a lot of work needs to be put into automatic thesauri linked to the digital library. Number 4, customers expect result pages to be ranked. They are used to this and can hardly imagine that a search engine result page might not be ranked. Thus, intelligent ranking of result pages is a must, and I'm pleased to know that the research project LibRank of ZBW and a colleague of mine will explore these possibilities. Number 5, and I'm not sure about this, reputation management through libraries. As Lorcan Dempsey of OCLC reminds us, researchers and universities are increasingly interested in having their research results and expertise discovered by others. An open access repository can be more than just another digital library, but in addition, a showcase to the researcher and her work. It could be a bit like this. This is a visualized idea from a research project of Nancy Foster and Susan Gibbons, who tried to find out how to induce faculty to contribute the papers to the university's digital repository, a bit like Econ Store. How can you make people contribute to a repository like this? And the idea was to add some reputation management to this repository for the young researchers. Now, I've come to the end of my talk, and I hope that I contributed something meaningful to you, although it was not exactly online Science 2.0. Thank you.
Please wait for the microphone.
I did. Thank you for the introduction into usability and the usefulness for libraries and librarians' work. I wonder whether there would be different expectations or patterns of most usable interfaces for different target communities. For example, if we have the digital natives whenever they exist, so the very young ones who are used to use mobile devices, and the older scientists. And I would expect that it would be necessary to have two different interfaces. And I'd like to know if from your data you could say that there is such a difference, or if this perhaps indeed doesn't matter.
I very much agree with you. In fact, I think we need 3 different interfaces, and it should not be too difficult to do this. One interface for librarians or information experts who are more savvy in complicated kinds of and very to the point searches. One normal interface like Google, but with the intelligence of Google behind it, and of course a mobile device interface for very young users.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting talk for sure, but I am interested to know exactly if there is any idea to be used in the future, much more integral services from digital libraries for the users. Maybe you can ask me what does it mean. Okay, I can ask for something and you can offer to me. But nowadays everybody, especially the young people, the young researchers, students, are looking to get a little bit more. They can communicate to the professors, they can communicate with the friends, but it's another story. I see from digital library in the future more integral services. I can give a simple example. So I need to do something. And just if I have an interface that I put some request, library can give me such a service to complete all my requests. So it's a service, not a simple service like we are looking the library till now. It's a little bit more, much more for the future. So, and this, I think, will be the future of digital library for everybody staying home, staying in the coffee, drinking a coffee, and looking to get something. I don't know till now if you plan something like that, or there is any agenda in Europe exactly going in this direction. And I think this will be one of the directions, in my opinion, maybe I am wrong, it will be very, very important for the future. We can discuss later on. I have some ideas, but it's not at the moment now. But I would like to know if you have in plan something like that for the future.
I don't. I'm not sure. What you say makes me think of one library website that I went to several years ago, and there was a feature which I found useful, probably for young students, and it said you had pull-down menus and ways of narrowing down your intent. For instance, you could say, I come from this subject and I have, say, 2 weeks' time in order to complete a paper. I haven't got any idea, I need introductory literature, and then the catalogue would suggest papers for just that purpose. But I don't know if that's what you have in mind.
A little bit much more complex, maybe we can discuss later. But I consider as an integral service. You mentioned something during your answer, but it's not really something like that. It's a little bit more wide to support exactly research teams, research people young people that looking to do something innovative or something like that. I'm not saying to give the possibility to the student to fulfill any project or something like that. No, not like that. Yeah, later on. Sorry.
Are there any other questions?
Sorry.
Okay, well then it's time for...
Oh, perhaps not only questions, but perhaps reactions.
Just one question. Yes, hello, Katrina McCallum from PLOS. I was just wondering what you felt of the role of libraries in institutional repositories and the creation and generation of repositories and how people are using those, because there's a lot of research now that users are very interested in using all sorts of material in addition to books and journals as well.
I did some research in our own university and found out that I couldn't find anybody who actually knew our institutional repository. So I guess that it would be really useful to have, research of course is global. So I don't believe in institutional repositories, but in subject-based repositories that are worldwide, like the one that physical students have, and perhaps like Econ Store. I don't know how global Econ Store is, or if you have competitors, but...
RepEc is the global.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm a linguist by subject, so I don't... but as a linguist, I can tell you that the only repository I would use is a global one, the one global repository. I wouldn't go from university to university and use many different repositories.
Okay, so thank you to Professor Schulz as well. And please stay here for some more inspiration about making libraries more useful. Okay. Some more tea from Hamburg.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.